By the way, I lived on a dirt road in a trailer at the time. So, pretty decent aspirations. And so one of my favorite live events is this whole thing I've come up with, differentiate or die, right? Because if you're seen as the same as everyone else, how do people differentiate? SEO on Google, my idea is to be found, to educate. And it's really the only way to get around this is
Our guest today is Philip Fairley, the president and owner of the Rainmaker Institute, the nation's largest law firm marketing company that focuses on client generation, lead conversion, and data analytics. Since its inception, Rainmaker has helped over 23,000 attorneys and law firms grow their business by learning and implementing their proven marketing and intake strategies. Now, during his time at Rainmaker, Philip has co-developed Turbine, the only software platform that automates the intake processes, and Rainalytics, the only tool which automatically measures all law firm data. Philip holds degrees from Northwestern University, Wheaton College, and Keller Graduate School. He is an NCAA Division I national debate champion and is a recognized expert on intake, lead conversion, and innovative video marketing. His and Rainmaker's expertise have been noted and quoted in the following: American Bar Association's Journal, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fortune Small Business, Harvard Management Update, Business Advisor, the Chicago Tribune, Crain's Chicago Business, and Attorney at Law magazines. He and his Rainmaker's experts have spoken at over 35 state and local bar associations. Philip is married with 3 children, enjoys the Arizona lifestyle, mountain biking, coaching youth sports, and I love this, attempting to golf. Welcome to the show, Philip.
Thanks for having me, Steve. When you trade your license in and you get a driver's license here in Arizona, you have to learn how to golf. So that's why
it's a state law. It's a state law. Yeah.
Yep.
I heard.
Right.
I love attempting to golf. I have been there, done that. Yeah, that's a great word. And I may borrow that. So let's just get right in. Your story. We talked offline, and I can't wait for the listeners and viewers to hear and see and your story and you can start wherever you want in the timeline, but how you got to where you are today.
Well, everybody has a unique journey, and I think everybody goes through, I don't know, Steve, I think they go through 3 different lives in their adulthood, whether that's careers or types of whatever it may be. And I'm not a numerologist, although I love data, but that's really what's brought me to here. I wanted to be an attorney. Actually, my family went back to New England where I grew up for Christmas. Took my family out. We met with one of my elementary school buddies. I had known him when we were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They looked at my daughters. They're like, I'd never met anybody who at the age of 10 years old said he wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. That's really my goal. And by the way, I lived on a dirt road in a trailer at the time. So, pretty decent aspirations. So then I went to college, and then I was going to go to law school and got offered a job in technology back in the late 90s, where they were just tossing opportunities and paychecks at anybody that wanted to jump into the industry. And so I really kind of fell in love with it, said, hey, I'll wait for law school, pulled me into tech. And then like every other entrepreneur that's listening to this said, I can do it better. And so then I put up my own shingle and then just went through those iterations. The story that brought me to Rainmaker, at the time when I was working in technology, the last dozen years or so, I was really focusing a lot with law firms, managing their tech. But what brought me to the ownership of Rainmaker is a sad and a happy story. My best friend, my brother, 4 years older than me, was also building Rainmaker when I was building my tech firm in Chicago. And actually next month, actually in October of 2024, it will be 5 years since he passed away.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we got a phone call, one of those phone calls, Steve, right? You've gotten them. If you're an attorney, you've maybe gotten it from a partner or your spouse or your business partner or child, whatever it may be. We've all got those phone calls. I remember where I was. Made a family decision. In 10 weeks, I sold my 2 tech companies, my house, and moved my family down to Arizona to kind of take care of my brother, Steven, because he had started Rainmaker in 1999. So didn't really know what I was going to do, but knew I needed to be there for my brother because we had lived across the countries in different places, best men at each other's wedding, godfather of all my children, like really close, shared bunk beds in a trailer growing up, right? And it was a real tough time for me to watch somebody. If you've ever known somebody who's gone through the worst horrible journey of cancer, it's just not just affects them, but everyone else. But the good part of the story is, one, I was able to share the last years of his life and make some really great memories. But then I was also able to continue his legacy that he started at Rainmaker. We've got a shrine down the end of our hallway with some of his books. He's got VHS tapes that he was selling back in 99, right? When he was doing coaching or these other things before anybody was doing it. He's got a book on Amazon. We still get 20 years later, we get royalties on coaching, right? And so we've gone down through the phases of just listening to what our clients wanted. So I've been able to slide in, take over Rainmaker. And it was a couple of years of us being quiet and then try to retool the company. But since that point, over the last 3 years, it's kind of been a hockey stick growth just because of some of the listening to our clients and some of the great technologies or approaches or strategies we've been able to create and develop based upon what their needs are. So that's the story that brought me all the way to Rainmaker today.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure he's looking down, very proud, continuing his legacy. So kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah, Steve, I was just in St. Louis, not in St. Louis, in Salt Lake City a few weeks ago, and there was a Lex Summit, a big FileVine user conference in our legal space. And we were throwing a happy hour, about 150 attorneys, 2 ladies, 1 attorney and 1 senior intakes came up and hugged me and talked to me about that Rainmaker had worked with them 10, 15 years ago and changed their life. So having that, being able to continue his legacy as well as our reputation and building on that, doesn't mean I don't miss him. Doesn't mean that, we don't have our struggles with certain areas, but man, it is a blessing to be able to really continue that. It's my therapy when I go to these legal events and then get interactions from that. So it's been interesting.
Your love and passion and everything for your brother and what he started is coming through loud and clear. So massive kudos to you. I want to get into, because I'm a marketer, right, among many different things, but one of the things when I thought of it when you and I met was I'd love to get your thoughts on how is marketing a law firm different than marketing other industries. And any industry is going to be different, but something tells me a law firm is even more different.
Well, there's a couple different things. And Steve, I say this because we only work with law firms, but these strategies apply for service-based, even product-based businesses. But in the legal space, I say there's, I tell this to attorneys and I try to put it on billboards and show it to them in front of there's 2 types of people in this world. There's regular people and attorneys. That's how we divide the world. Because not only I call them actually, they don't have a JD or law degree. They have a degree in professional skepticism. So working in that industry makes a difficult barrier, but their potential clients, the vast majority of them do not want to work with them. They're forced to. And it's usually in good or a lot of times in a negative situation. So a lot of times when a phone call gets placed or potential client calls a law firm, it's literally probably one of the worst and most difficult phone calls they've ever made. In fact, sometimes they may dial it 4 or 5 times and not all the numbers and hang up. Like, yes, I am going to separate from my spouse. Yes, I am going to have to face this arrest warrant. Yes, we're dealing with probate issues or a legal issue with our business, or I can't ignore this anymore, or bankruptcy, whatever it may be, right? And so their clients don't want to work with them. They all think they charge them $1,000 a minute and are just in it for the dollars. They never hear from them. They have a bad buying experience. They don't buy it like Netflix or new batteries on Amazon or whatever it may be. It's a bad buying experience. And so I have to tell you, that's why it's real ripe, Steve, right now, because in the state I live in Arizona and also Utah, they're allowing non-attorneys to own law firms. It's really going to change a lot of the whole structure because now lawyers are being forced to run their firm like a business instead of a practice. So marketing to their potential clients, they've got to get their phone to ring every day. They have to. They get repeat business, but they've got to get new business every day, every week, every month. And they are relegated to various things in the marketing that people use, right? Google pay-per-click, other things like this. Legal marketing outside of plastic surgery, is the most expensive marketing in America. It's the most costly. And the competition is crazy because they have to get their phone to ring every time. And that phone could be an $8,000 check. It could be a $40,000 check. It could be a $250,000 check at the other end of that line. So there's a lot of competition, but that also has led to a lot of abuse in the industry. But it's really difficult for an attorney to break through when they're thinking they're traditional and their website has, they're on the courthouse with the scales of justice in the back and they're all looking like this. And then you have somebody that's your neighbor, that's a normal person that doesn't want to contact this. And then they reach out to them and they feel like they're a nuisance and they're working with the Supreme Court. So marketing is so important because it's really difficult to pour through all of the noise because there's large firms that dominate a lot of the marketing channels out there. And so there's a lot of strategies that these smaller firms that really care about their business that have to deploy. But it's marketing to a group of people. Just think about this for a second, Steve. If you were in an industry like you and I, we're in, part of our industry is marketing. And I know all yours is, our value prop to a potential client is, hey, if you give us $5, we're going to give you $13 back. You're like, okay, how many more $5 bills can I find? Because you're giving me a good ROI.
Right.
If your clientele, if your value prop is you don't like me and I'm going to charge you significantly more than what you think it should be, and you're really mystified about this whole process and intimidated and you don't want to buy this service, but you're kind of forced to, think about how you have to communicate with potential clients. Completely different.
Completely different. Yeah. You mentioned about, the competition, and I know there's challenges obviously in any industry when it comes to marketing. But I want to ask you about a couple specifically that I noticed. And so right off the bat is that differentiating from the competition. And you're so right about, and I think it's more, you tell me it's more prevalent maybe in bigger cities. Like I'm in Philly and, you see the billboards for these big national and local law firms.
Morgan, Lerner, Rowe, right? Yep.
Right. So how does a smaller firm, what's some ways they can do that? Differentiate.
Well, luckily, the vast majority of people hire attorneys. They don't really hire law firms, right? I do a whole session when I'm one of my favorite live events is this whole thing I've come up with, differentiate or die, right? Because if you're seen as the same as everyone else, how do people differentiate? You can be known as the cheapest law firm or cheapest business in town. That's not always the great approach. So if you don't differentiate, the great part is some of those big firms, they really go after like the personal injury space, right? Because that can be the most lucrative. The other practice areas, and even in the personal injury space, really what we found is it's all about getting those potential attorneys in front of their potential clients. And I'm not talking about it in a consultation or an intake process. So we have really found that short videos, nurturing leads that have already contacted you, retargeting the hell out of every person that has popped on your Facebook profile, that has jumped on their website, any landing pages, any marketing collateral, just retarget them. Because in a world of clicks, of truck accident, Dallas, of $1,000 a click versus, right? In those worlds, it's not so much the lack of leads. It really has become a lack of conversion because there is more, fortunately, there's more legal needs out there than there are attorneys that are good. And there really are. Because a lot of practicing attorneys go into software, consulting, corporate, other business ventures, legal tech. They're like, practicing attorneys, the ones that the average consumer needs like 3 times in their life, like estate planning, divorce, criminal, family law, whatever it may be, right? Business, contract, real estate. So what we've found is not having to compete on those big platforms, but be really niche and deliberate in understanding what their ideal client is. And then when they have a potential client that interacts with them, to really nurture them, because a lot of law firms think that their marketing stops when somebody calls their firm. And by the way, in our space, about 75 to 80%, I think it may be higher, their first interaction with a law firm is a phone call, right? Because they've got something serious going on. They're not they may fill out a form or chat, but they're talking with somebody even to see if this is the right firm and what the situation is. Always detailed phone call. But the average attorney closes at about 25%. Now, in a regular industry, you may think that sounds pretty good, right? So just like with our sales team, if we're closing at 25 to 30, 40%, back of the envelope numbers, that's a great sales close rate. But that may be for selling a vacation or selling a mattress or a set of tires or whatever it may be. These are people with legitimate issues. So the attorneys that know how to nurture their leads, that know how to sell the value of their firm and differentiate at the consult or at the point of intake when they first reach out to the firm, if they understand those things, their close rates, no joke, 60, 70, 80%.
I believe it.
So when you're a law firm that gets 100 leads a month, remember, a lot of legal issues out there, 20% of the ones, they're disqualified right out of the gate, right?
Yep.
And then the rest of them, they go at something legitimate. Well, too many of the salespeople or intake people at law firms think they're bad leads because they don't nurture them. They may call them back once. They may send one email. They want to nurture. And so we've really uncovered. That's why when we first started in marketing, that's why you see a lot of people come into our space, Steve. There's a lot of legal marketing companies. When we were around, there was us. We were before Fine Law and right around the time of Scorpion, the two big, huge players in the space. Then all of these other companies come in and try to go into the space, but then they find out that it's not just about the lead generation, because that's not always the most difficult part of generating leads in this industry. It's converting those leads into clients, right? And so they'll have 100 leads that come in and they're signing 12 cases. That's a problem. Then they're like, I just need more leads. So we'll get 200 leads. So we can get 24 cases.
Right.
That's their mentality. And then I'll put in 90 hours a week of work. So the marketing, pay-per-click works in this industry. Local service ads, they kill it in the legal space, right? Video ads on social media for certain industries are good, but really the biggest opportunity is taking those leads and converting them into clients.
So it's a good segue. You're talking about online, and I saw another challenge for marketing in the legal profession is, and I'm just going to read it as I read it online, was reaching potential clients who are increasingly using online search to find, lawyers. Now, of course, here at Stan, that's what we specialize in SEO. Hey, sorry for the interruption. We're going to get back to our show in one quick second, but stay with me. If you're in the need for anything SEO and or link building related, you need to do yourself one quick favor. You need to go to the website that's on the screen right now, stanventures.com. Go there, tell them Steve O sent you. The rest will take care of itself. Trust me, you can thank me later. But talk a little bit about, and I guess juxtaposed over when Google decided once and for all, they're not going to eliminate third-party cookies, which had to be to help everybody. But talk about, more people are searching online for lawyers, law firms, et cetera, and how much that plays into your overall, service offering.
Well, they do that. And then if you just to Google, Steve, Philadelphia family attorney, you're going to find pages. You go to YouTube, do the same. Yeah. You're going to find a couple, right? You go to Instagram, you go to Facebook, you go and search there. Because SEO, people not in this space yet, because attorneys are a little bit behind because they're more traditional. But in other spaces, when you're performing SEO, it's not just for Google search anymore. It's for every platform because they're looking for these, right? And if you go to Google, you have to write a big check, especially in our space. And then if you write that check and they click on your landing page or call your firm, you better nurture the hell out of them. Yeah. Right? Because you're not trying to sell them something superfluous. They have something legitimate going on. So the law firms can be a lot more direct and repetitive in their follow-up, right? Because you're not being spammy. You're actually legitimately trying to save them from whatever situation it may be in, and they have to make a choice. But the paid and the search, man, and it's really the only way to get around this is omnichannel approach. Right. And that's what we do. And 3 years ago, we bought a video company out of California because video is such a huge play in this industry. Because if you don't have an omni-channel approach, you're going to get whacked by Google Gemini that I've been playing around with a lot. And I'll talk about that in a second. Well, my big concern with that is, so with an omni-channel approach, what we do is we take a client's video, like a YouTube video that's 5 to 8 minutes in length, and then we slice it up and multi-purpose it for a blog, newsletter, nurturing emails, shorts, reels, Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. And you distribute those across. And if you got other channels, then you just put that channel in the mix. You optimize it for each channel. And if you're not sure how to do that, you find the channels where your potential clients are. You spend the next 3 months mapping out, how can I distribute to these and how do I have to optimize for those? Yep. If it's Google, don't do it on your own, right? And depending on what your volume is, right? You can't, it's just silly. You will never compete. But when you take this piece of content and you put it on multiple channels and reuse it for every channel that you possibly can think of, now you've really started to create an organic system for posting out content. And then you just get better with it and you create better content that's more involved. And then you take that content and then you take a few dollars. When I talk about a few dollars, like we do national retargeting on Meta and Facebook and LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. And we spend about $1,500 a month. That's it, right, on our retargeting campaigns. So you take your organic and you post it everywhere on multiple channels on a consistent basis. And if you're not consistent, get somebody else that can be consistent. But then one of the strategies that we found is then you retarget them, especially in our space, because not everybody's ready to get a divorce or hire that attorney on the first phone call or sign a contract for an injury when they're still in the hospital and they still need to do more research, or, dad's, grandpa's company that he passed down to the siblings and split, right? They're not always ready to make that decision right away. So the nurturing part of it, and you can take and extrapolate that to almost every professional service out there or large products in the manufacturing space. But you take that same idea and say, what does it take to generate a lead? Now, what does it take to convert a lead? Do not forget about the second half of that equation, because that second half of the equation takes that. Because if you're in Texas and you get a catastrophic truck accident, and I used that example earlier, and you're in Dallas and, and you've got Merit Trucking or whatever trucking, I don't want to say a personal name, they get a catastrophic accident and you have a loved one that dies, right? And you're the attorney that then is able to represent them. That could be $100 million deal with a 30% split. Now that $1,000 a click is not a problem, as long as you nurture every single one of them to the nth degree and treat them like gold. And if you're a family attorney, if you're a consultant, if you're a criminal defense attorney, whatever you may be in your professional service, if you stop thinking about that lead every single minute and nurturing them like a mother chicken does to the egg, like taking care of it and owning it, well, then that $1,000 a click sounds ridiculous. But if I get 10 clicks, $10,000, but I convert 3 of them, you're like, okay, now we're, what do they say? Cooking with gas. I don't know. Right. So you have to look at both sides of the equation. And so many people just think about lead generation, but it's like a bucket with holes in it. That's your sales funnel if you don't worry about the leads going through it.
Yeah. So let's elaborate on Gemini and AI.
It's a total different experience for a user. SEO on Google, my idea is to be found, to educate. So I just created a video about this, Steve. Just think about if you're in California and you're I'm going to use this. Now, I love my wife. Next month, celebrating 20 years and 28 years together. So I'm not getting a divorce, but let's just say I was in California, right? And I was in a different life. I was on my 4th life. That's why I can't compete. Compute, I mean, if I'm never trying to get a divorce and I own a company. So my normal Google search was, and I've got a couple kids, California, I got to separate from my spouse and save my business. Right. And then you Google that, and then there would be some blogs about attorneys that there's a good chance that we would have written them for those law firms, then put them out there. And they're like, okay, here's what to think about if you're an entrepreneur in California separating from your spouse. But instead, what happens now is Google jumps in and answers it with Gemini. But then what I saw about 3 weeks ago is something else that really kind of blew my mind. So now it says, okay, well, California is a no-fault state for family, for divorce. And here's a couple other things that you should be thinking about since you said you were a business owner. Now, Google Gemini is proposing suggestions about how to further refine your search and more information. And I found actually that it will start answering things proactively that you haven't asked that also hover around that subject, of which attorneys and lawyers we're great at writing that to educate the general public that has no idea what goes on in the court system. So now it says, hey, it's a no at fault state. Oh my goodness. Well, no fault. Well, so what does that mean? And then that's how you would normally, as a user, I'm getting a divorce, I'm Googling, okay, what is a no fault state? What does that mean? Well, then you'd find another blog, but now Google Gemini answers that. And then it also lays, if you have children, and it did this, if you have children, here's other things you need to think about. And then it gave me a couple buttons if it wanted me to click on there to get more information about that particular topic that it suggested that it related to what I was Googling. So normally 2 years ago, I would have opened up 3, 4, 5 different blogs, probably 4 of them from attorneys and 1 from the ABA. Now my journey is all contained within right at the beginning of my Google search.
Yep.
And so now pay-per-click, way more competitive. Local service ads, if you're in the service industry, you may or may not be able to run these for yours, but they're great for attorneys and law firms. Now paid is going to be even more competitive because you don't have to first page. What? Why? I don't know. I'm just trying to think. Like when I had my IT company, I read this book. It was talking about the oncoming cloud computing and how it's going to, because I was putting servers in law firms with their practice management software like 25 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted it in the cloud. That's scary. Everybody has access to it, whatever. So this guy wrote this book and it was really controversial in the IT space because he said, we're all going to go to distributed learning or cloud computing. And everybody's like, that's the end of our jobs, right? Well, he takes about the example of how electricity started in Chicago with little plants that could service a mile, then 2 miles, then 3 miles. They got bigger. And then they'd have like 50 electrical plants all around the city. And then they combined them with wires. And then they unified it and just drove the price down, eliminated a lot of competition. So he used that same approach. And you see that now with Microsoft 365, Google Suite. You see that with Clio in our space. You see that with sales, with all of these others. It's kind of really big and unified. But, for $12 a month, you get the entire Office suite and everything Microsoft has to throw at you. It's totally different. I see this transformation coming in search on Google. That's why Meta is investing so much. That's why, you can even rewrite your Facebook post with one click if you didn't like the way it sounded. Because I was thinking, why would AI go into social? Why do you want a bunch of artificial content? No, they're using it to enhance the experience so you don't have to leave that. Now, if you're going to be asking their tool about the same things you would to Google, it's just going to increase that, right? So I just see a vastly different user experience on Google than I did even 6 months ago. They launched it, went to bed with it because I think it said George Washington was of a different nationality than it was. And they were like, wow, too hot potato. They stopped Gemini, went back, launched it quietly, and it's just changing how people search the web.
Yeah, I mean, not above and beyond just law firms, obviously. It's everything.
Oh, yeah. This applies across the board. And so if you're looking at organic and how to be found, if you're found, you better make sure you stay found and stay on their radar. But now how do you step aside doing that? And that's where we've been working with our clients to optimize their YouTube, their social, on the SEO side of it. We're getting, 80% requests on the Google side and 20% on the others. Wow. But it will switch. I think it will flow through because people want to be found. And if it's more competitive, can't even get on the first page. And if you are, and you don't have the money to pay for it, what are you going to do as a small business?
Exactly.
Didn't mean to be doom and gloom.
No. No. That's reality.
Yeah.
If anybody took that,
died how many times now? 10 times.
Correct. Listen, I knew this time was going to fly by, dude, and it has. I knew when we first met, we were going to hit it off. I can't thank you enough for coming on. It has been totally my pleasure. You are a treat, and that's it. I just say thank you.
This was good stuff, man. I get my juices flowing. I get real passionate about these things because I see that these things make a difference. So
they absolutely do. Thank you again.
Appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Steve.
Hey, I'm the guy from the video you just saw. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Now do yourself a favor. If you haven't already, subscribe to our content. Believe it or not, unconfirmed rumors and reports, you will see an increase in 20% in organic traffic just by subscribing. Okay, maybe not, but it's fun, right? But do yourself a favor, really. Subscribe to our content. You won't be sorry. Thanks.